So by and large, when people go and I'm specifically talking of this in terms of B schools, for example, right? A lot of things is about power, right? Achievement is about power, right? A lot of people who get into fancy B schools like ours here, a lot of it is about power. So what I have wanted to do is kind of think of it from a structure of power, and what does it mean when people look at these things. There are 5 of them. You will need to keep on helping me with the slides. There are another 4 listed below this, right? So you got, so when we say power, what is it really that you're looking at? You're looking at authority, you're looking at resources, you're looking at influence, you're looking at knowledge, networks, right? Like Nathan mentioned. You're looking at control, your ability to do a lot of things. You're looking at legitimacy of a lot of those things, because gun-toting terrorist has power, right? You don't want to be one of them. So it's about reputation, therefore, along with it. And it's about the position eventually, right? And that's one of the more simpler versions of power that we think of in terms of position. I want to tell you some of my stories in terms of how I see it in this frame, and therefore what it has led me to do, and probably why I'm standing here, telling you a few things, irrespective of whether I'm capable of doing those things or not, right? Okay, next one, please. Nitin mentioned purpose, right? Mark Twain very famously had said this, that the 2 most important days in your life is the day you were born and the day you will find out why were you born, right? People keep on talking about having a purpose in life. I think the key is finding out the purpose. MDI has said that, I don't know if it happens now, but 14th Feb, which is the Valentine's Day, which was yesterday, used to be our default placement day for some reason. I don't know why, but at least my batch, and I think a batch before that, that day 1 was Valentine's Day always. I was the second last guy to get placed in my batch, right? And I used to be the secretary of this IT thing that we had, right? Nitin was there as well. The guy who was last was the Gen Sec. Okay. My CGPA, my GPAs were, I still remember them, 5.83, 5.83, 5.83, 5.83, 5.67, 5.83. I couldn't score a 6, right? And I wouldn't, even my resume wouldn't get shortlisted. I think I was among the last 10 guys to get even summer internship. And day 1, there's just a few people left. And I'm just outside, which used to be our hostel, the first one, the mess ke bahar. It was a bright sunny day. There was a table out there and a chair out there. I put my feet up on it and just sat down. I wasn't wearing any formals, no nothing. And a couple of my friends walked up to me and said, "Why are you sitting like this? You need a job." I said, "Yes, I do. But I mean, if somebody is not willing to give it to me, it's okay. And I know that's not the last thing in my life." And I had actually applied to a very limited number of companies, and one of those companies where I eventually ended up going to was an analytics company. And I was the only guy who had applied to that. Eventually, they ended up taking me. Right? Even that was a bloody 3-hour interview, though. I think the reason that was a little bit of clarity was because I somehow knew that I had this very crazy streak in me which said, it's fine. I know myself. I know what I want to do. I didn't want to be another marketing guy. I didn't want to be another finance guy. I just wanted to do something very different. And analytics at that time was very, very different playbook. Driving analytics, business through analytics was like, we're talking AI nowadays, that was the scene of analytics those days, right? But there were very, very limited jobs or work being done in India around that place, right? I think that those 2 years for me, one most important thing that I did was figure out some streaks of what is it that really drives me, what is it that I really wanted to do. Apart from the fact that my wife now and my girlfriend was my classmate, so that was a great play. It kept me, entertained. But other side of it was purposefully looking at what is it that you want to do. I think it's extremely important to be at that stage. 2 is you have got to find what is it that you're willing to own. You want to be great, not good, not about being a senior guy, getting faster promotions, getting better GPA. You want greatness. The cost of or the price of greatness is taking ownership. It's about taking responsibility, and that has got to be end to end. You know, when you look at taking responsibilities, you take up those responsibilities without giving any thought of whether you're gonna get anything in turn for it. So it's got to be in a way in which your expectations out of taking that responsibility is practically nothing. That's very important. So, and by the way, it is not about knowing anything. It's about you wanting to know a lot about it. You wanting to figure out a lot of things. So when you are working in an office, somebody was talking about karmanya vade karaste here, the question, it doesn't matter. You got your job, you have taken the responsibility, you go and fulfill that responsibility. And you put your head down, you put blinkers on, and you do as much as possibly you can. That's what is important. So figure out your purpose, take your time. If you got time here, trust me, there is not a lot of stuff that you guys are doing, trust me. None of you have a gun to your head. Understand your purpose, and once you have figured something out, take ownership, take responsibility deeply about it. And that's what will take you to next one. Next one. Third, will to win. And that's something that I have always thought that I have had in oodles. And that's what I'm saying, I'll always give my personal stories about it. When I was at Motorola, I ended up, actually even before that, I was actually perhaps the first guy from this college, despite my GPA, which got an offer from BCG. And at that time, BCG never used to come to campus. Okay, so I got an offer from outside, and I had another offer from Honeywell. I declined BCG, which was paying about 2x the money that Honeywell was paying, ended up joining Honeywell, ended up staying 6.5 years in that company. And my key was very clear, was that in a company like Honeywell, I know what I'm going to learn. Right from learning, and that's also will to win. How deeply, how strongly do you want to learn something? How much of an, how much of an effort do you want to put around it? And how much are you willing to give and sacrifice for it? So I did that. I went to Motorola. I was heading up strategy for Asia Pacific. The company got acquired by Google. And there was a mass exodus in that company at that time, right? Google fired about 90% of population globally. There was 24,000 people. It came down to like 3,000 people. And my entire team used to tell me every day, "Bhai, kahin chal pad, humko bhi saath le jao," right? And I was like, I had this thing in my mind, no, there's something to it, there's something to it, we can make it. There is a lot of things that the company hasn't done right, but if we can articulate that position correctly, we can do it. I ended up staying there. I made sure that I convinced my team to stay there as well, which is about 5-6 people. We were the only strategy team globally that got retained. And then 3 months later, company elevated me to become the CEO of the company, Motorola, right? And so from an analyst doing analytics to CEO of Motorola was an 8 years. I was probably their youngest CEO in Motorola's like 92-year history globally. It made sense, right? It pays back, but you've got to stick around for it. You've got to make sure that you have an incredible amount of will to win, saying that I know if I'm here, if I want to do it, I can make it happen. And unless until you have that, you're an average guy. And that's, now you circle back to the earlier one. If you want greatness, not an average life or an above average life, if you want greatness, greatness will only come from taking very deep responsibilities and ownership. Yeah. By the way, there's a very nice quote just at the bottom of that slide. It says, determination actually makes talent irrelevant. And trust me, I'm a huge believer in that. I think being smart, being talented is an extremely, extremely overrated idea. If you have the capacity to persevere, work hard, you will beat a super talented guy 10 out of 10 times. By the way, a great cricket example in my opinion is the Dravid and the Tendulkar, right? Probably both equally great. One guy was just gifted, right? The other purely on the sheer back of the perseverance. Next, please. Excellence and execution, right? We say, again, I'm refer back to previous conversation. Somebody said, companies they will say, material gains, capitalism is where it all goes to. Of course, that's where it goes to. What are they running, an NGO? Are you willing to go to an NGO and take the compensation that an NGO is willing to give to you? Why the question? That's the aim that they have. You have your aims. The shloka from Gita does not say, capitalism is bad, right? It says that when you work hard, you aim at something, you try to execute well, you try to execute as well as you can, and you repeatedly do that execution. I could have put just one bullseye thing out there. The reason there are multiple of them, because you need to keep on executing well day after day after day after day after day. That's important. You get a 10 on 10 in one exam, it's not going to make you a gold medalist at MDI. You need to get those 9s, 10s on all the subjects. That's what you will call a gisu yahi kar raha hai na, baith ke. But that's what happens. You have to execute significantly, keep on doing it. So you want to build up an empire? It doesn't happen overnight. You build it brick by brick. It will get the tears out of your eyes. But that's how it is. So Sam Levinson had said, don't watch the clock. Keep doing what it does. Next one, please. Eventually, resilience. Again, some really, Ernest Hemingway had said this. I like some of these quotes, that's why I have put them out here. He said, the world breaks everyone. And afterwards, some are really strong at the broken places. You got to take punches. You got to have the capacity to take punches. You will fall, you will get up again. The fancy life that I used to have as CEO of a Motorola, or as, for example, even CBO of Smartron, trust me, that doesn't exist anymore today for me. If my office boy is not in my office today, I'm the one who's going to go and make tea. That's fine. That's part of life. That's how it's going to go on. There is, I probably used to work 10, 12 hours during my previous jobs. Today, I'm 10 years older and probably working like 15. There's a lot of people that would, in my previous roles as corporate CEOs, will do anything if they knew that I was coming to their office. Today, I have to make 2 phone calls saying, hey, I want to come to your office. You open to giving me half an hour? But that's part of life. You got to kind of keep on doing it. So resilience is important, and that is what power is. That's the framework of power that I want. If you want everything else that power bestows on people, these are 5 things that you need to keep on doing. Identify your purpose. Be an owner. Have the will to win. Execute with excellence and execute relentlessly. And then have the capacity and have the resilience in you to kind of get up every time you fall. It's going to happen. It's going to happen enough times. Right? The last is this quote by William Shedd. I used to write this in my engineering college dorm pe, diwar pe. This was written in pencil even on my MDI dorm. Right? It says, a ship in a harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. You think you want to achieve something significant, you want to break barriers, you want to do more, you've got to be out there. You've got to take risks. You've got to be in a position to kind of execute well on those risks. That's what it's all about. And then I'll conclude with what Nitin had said. All that you can do is you don't own outcomes. You own the effort. You own that effort intelligently. That's all you can do. Yep. That's about from me, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me here.